Hello, and welcome to another installment of the Yakima Symphony Orchestra's Stories from Home, a series of interviews presented by Valley Mall and available at ysomusic.org. My name is Lawrence Golan, and I'm the Helen N. Jewett Music Director of the Yakima Symphony Orchestra. Today I'm coming to you from my home in Denver, Colorado, and I'm chatting with our principal tubist, David McLemore, coming to us from his home in Ellensburg, Washington. Hello, David. How are you doing today?
I'm very good. How are you doing, Lawrence?
Good. Yeah, everything's fine on this end. Yeah.
Great.
So tell us, how long have you been a member of the Yakima Symphony Orchestra?
So I first began playing with the ensemble during the 2015-2016 season. I was subbing in on several concerts. In fact, my first concert was the Pops opener that season, the Cirque de la Symphonie, which that was a lot of fun. That was a fun set, I have to say. People hanging from the rafters, and I'm just like, okay, just playing along, but it was very fun. So I subbed in on several sets that season. We did the principal tuba audition that spring. I was fortunate to be selected to join the ensemble, and so starting the fall of 2016, I was playing as the rostered principal tubist. So counting that first season, about 5 years.
Great, great. Well, it's been a real pleasure having you in the orchestra so far.
Thank you.
So up to this point, what has been your most memorable experience with the YSL?
This is actually a tricky question, to be honest. There have been so many wonderful experiences. One thing I have enjoyed playing with the ensemble is just the number of substantial pieces of the orchestral repertoire that we do, and also pieces with really prominent tuba parts. I mean, Tchaikovsky Symphony No. 4, Bruckner 4, Shostakovich 5. We've done so many great works. It's hard to pick pieces that stand out. But if I had to pick, obviously I would say Ein Heldenleben sticks out from last season. Not just because it's a great piece of music. I love me some Richard Strauss. And obviously it's a very fun tuba part for the contrabass tubist, but also it's always fun in the orchestra when you have more than one tuba player. So we had a tenor tuba, of course, it's called for. It's not every day that you have a euphonium playing with the orchestra. So it was really fun to have a colleague of mine, Dr. Chris Dickey from Washington State University. It was wonderful to have him out to play the tenor tuba part on Heldenleben. I would say probably the most memorable would have to be that Respighi doubleheader that we did, Fountains and Pines of Rome. Obviously, Fountains of Rome is one of those excerpts for tuba that appears on every audition just about, and it really separates people who are, seriously in contention for a gig from everyone else. And so it's just a lot of fun, just jumping through the flaming hoops, the tuba and the bass trombone underneath this massive orchestration. So certainly as a performer, that was a fun set. But also on Pines, we of course had the surrounding band musicians, and for the lower duet for the bass, the two bass voices, we actually ended up hiring out euphoniums, and I was very happy to have a couple of my students from Central Washington University to play, with the Yakima Symphony. And that's, again, it's not very often you have euphoniums having that opportunity to play with an orchestra. For me as a teacher, to collaborate with my students in a set. So I found that set to be very fulfilling, not just as a performer, but as an educator.
Yeah, well, that's great. Yeah, it's great to hear that you've had so many, memorable experiences in a relatively short tenure so far. It's been 5 years, and we're going to have many more memorable experiences to come. Hopefully,
Indeed.
Starting as soon as possible.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me, what makes being a member of the Yakima Symphony Orchestra special and/or different from being a member of any other organizations that you might work with?
Well, obviously, as I just alluded to, I'm a music professor here at the college in Ellensburg, Central Washington University, and there's a fair amount of teaching that goes in with that gig, and there is some performance, obviously, but as a performer, I definitely find that Yakima Symphony is very much, scratches that itch, so to speak. It's very much as a performer, I find the Yakima, playing with the symphony a very fulfilling gig. Even compared to when I was in grad school, playing with a lot of regional orchestras, as I did in my master's and in my doctoral studies. I remember when I started playing with the symphony back in 2015, I was immediately struck by the level of the playing of the ensemble. It just felt like a very clear step up compared to previous ensembles I've played, the cohesiveness of all the sections, the repertoire even. Just, again, we've done so many standards, as I alluded to in my previous answer. And so many, one thing that's special for me personally is just how many of kind of these big seminal works that we tuba players often study over and over again when we're on the audition circuit. For so many of these pieces, I haven't necessarily played them in context until I've gotten to the Yakima Symphony. I played my first Petrushka with the Yakima Symphony, my first Brahms 2, Shostakovich 5. I mean, I think Heldenleben might have actually been my first Heldenleben too. So many. It's just been wonderful to have the opportunity to actually play these pieces, not in an audition context, but actually in the actual context of,
right,
as a member of the orchestra.
It reminds me of one of my favorite movie quotes. With all this downtime, I've been watching a lot of movies with my kids. And one movie we just watched recently was Karate Kid Part 2.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and one of my favorite quotes from that is at the end when Mr. Miyagi says, "Danielson, this not tournament, this for real."
I remember that.
Yeah, and so that's what you're talking about. You play these excerpts so many times for auditions, which is like a tournament, which are like tournaments. But when you play it, with the orchestra in concert, then it's for real. So
it's true. It's very different. It's very different playing a piece, an excerpt in isolation, just as one voice, versus in the real context. It's very different.
Right. Well, our viewers are all very much familiar with your wonderful musicianship, but is there some surprising or interesting non-musical fact about you that we may not know?
Well, as it turns out, I'm a bit of a gamer. In terms of, I grew up playing video games. I always had the Nintendo, and then it was the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis, and then later on Sony PlayStation, so on and so forth. Always getting the new consoles. More recently, I've become a bit of a board gamer, tabletop gamer. My wife, Amanda, has kind of introduced me to a number of these games, and so actually for our anniversary last summer, and more normal times, we went to this board gaming convention over in Boise, Idaho,
really?
which was a fun way to, 3-day weekend, fun way to celebrate our anniversary. In fact, sometimes on the Yakima Symphony sets, particularly on the Saturdays, we have the morning dress rehearsal, and then we have several hours left to our own devices before the evening concert. Sometimes I'll actually head over to the Game and Grog, which is a bar just a couple blocks over on First Ave from the Capitol Theater, and they have obviously food and drink, but they have a whole wall of board games and several tables, and then they have like many video TV screens lining the walls with everything from like retro gaming consoles all the way up to like the newest. So sometimes I spend a couple hours there on
that's great. I did not know that about you, so yeah, thanks for sharing. Another interesting fact is that we have a common colleague in the tuba industry. I teach at the University of Denver, and one of my colleagues here is Warren Deck, the great tubist who for 25 years was the principal tubist of the New York Philharmonic, and now he teaches here in Denver. And you have a connection with him as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I was very fortunate the summer of 2011 to attend the Aspen Music Festival in Aspen, Colorado, which was a lot of fun. And I got to work with Warren that summer, taking lessons and just trying to absorb as much information out of him in those 2 months or so of lessons as I could. It was a wonderful experience. I remember I got to play. We had this low brass master class that he would always run, where we would essentially do section excerpts. So I got paired off with a trio of trombones, and we were running through. I think it was Bruckner, the finale from Bruckner's Symphony Number 8, which is one of my favorite all-time Bruckner moments. That's just, it's so epic and glorious, and it was fun just having Warren just give his feedback, because man, if he's not a good model for orchestral tuba playing, I don't know what is. Just, oh my God, so present, so much. Like, it's, I teach a history of rock class here at Central, and I sometimes talk about Phil Spector's The Wall of Sound. Well, Warren was a literal wall of sound, just like, oh, blow out your speakers if you're not careful. But it's just, what a glorious sound, and really a nice guy, wonderful. I very much enjoyed working with him that summer.
Yeah, he's a fantastic colleague. I love working with him as well, and I feel really honored to be able to do so.
Absolutely.
Our audiences miss hearing you play very much. Would you mind playing something for us?
Absolutely. So let me switch over my microphone. So this is just going to be a short movement from this unaccompanied work for tuba by Elizabeth Raum, who's a contemporary composer, has written a lot of stuff for tuba, euphonium, low brass. Wonderful, wonderful composer. So this is from her Sweet Dances for solo tuba. This is the second movement, Dot Polka. Each movement is kind of a pun. So
Okay.
let me switch the mic. There we go.
David McLemore, principal tubist of the Yakima Symphony Orchestra. Thank you so much for joining me today. It was a real pleasure talking with you and hearing you play, and I look forward to seeing you on stage in person as soon as we can do that.